I think we've answered the question of what it means. Well, I'll read it anyway if you want to answer it. What will it mean for the United States if Iran gets nuclear weapons? Have we answered that question?
I don't think we've talked about why it's important for the U.S.
Go ahead. It's your turn.
Two successive administrations, both Republican and Democrat, have established as their goal, at least on paper, that Iran will not be able to achieve nuclear weapons. If Iran does so, it will be a major blow to American power. It will be a major delegitimization of the American security threat that we pose to our enemies, to have two different administrations fail. It will also mean that our allies in Western Europe and in the region are threatened. And it will mean that countries we once sided with in NATO, like Turkey, or countries we considered close trading partners, like the United Arab Emirates, will begin to orbit around Iran and not around the West, as many are continuing to do. I think one of the reasons it's so difficult to get even our Arab allies to recognize Israel is they're beginning to feel like the writing is on the wall, and that Iran's continued efforts at getting nuclear weapons are succeeding. President Obama set a deadline of September 1st last year to get Iran to stop its nuclear program. Then it was September 30th. Then it was October 30th. Then it was the beginning of this year. We have moved deadline after deadline after deadline. And we have not been terribly active in the UN where we ought to have been. I was there present in the General Assembly on the day that they voted on the Goldstone report, and the US ambassador was not there. She was taping the Jon Stewart show. And instead they had the deputy ambassador to give a very lukewarm speech while Iran's ambassador railed on about Israeli human rights abuses. If we fail to stop a nuclear Iran, we fail to stop any future security threat against the United States, whether it comes from Iran via the medium-range missiles they're developing and the nuclear threat they're projecting, or it comes from North Korea, which is already torpedoing South Korean boats, or it comes from Russia, which is already conducting military exercises on the Polish border, now that we've succumbed to their requests that we remove missile defense from Poland and Eastern Europe. We cannot afford, not just in the Middle East, but worldwide, to let Iran achieve nuclear power status.
Let me talk a little bit about the sanctions and what has happened so far. 2 weeks ago, Russia announced it would return Iran's down payment of the S-300 air defense system because it violated sanctions. That's Russia, who was not expected to vote with the United States, but did in supporting the international sanctions at the United Nations. We know that the most prestigious economic project in Iran, the South Pars natural gas field, which was expected to bring in over $130 billion in natural gas sales after completion, these funds all being used to help, well, not all, but some, to advance their nuclear ambitions. Now we know that Shell, Total, Halliburton have been pulled out of development, threatened by tougher penalties if they continue to support Iran's energy sector. Then we also have Lloyd's of London, all the insurance companies refusing to insure any of the tankers that are going to Iran, because as you know, Iran produces oil, but it can't refine it, so it has to bring in all the gas that it needs. So its energy sector is severely suffering. These are things that are needed in order to produce the nuclear weapons and all the things they need to do to run their country. So we are hoping, we are working to bring the international community together, so far succeeding very well, to reduce the ability, the capacity, and then there are things that I know about that I can't talk about that are also going on to make sure that Iran's ability to continue to work toward its nuclear capability are being thwarted. Obviously, to me anyway, we want to do everything we can before the military option is actually engaged in, because it will explode the region and potentially lead to wars even further than that. And so I think that we continue to need to evaluate, but at the bottom line we say no nuclear weapons for Iran.